Good morning. Welcome to the May 30th Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. It's Memorial Day weekend when we remember those who have lost their lives in military service to our country. We gather to worship, join in shaping our understanding of what is of worth in life, to worth shape, and in supporting one another and transporting that worthiness into life, to worthship. Our community is devoted to growth in understanding and caring for all souls. We seek to learn from all persons, all peoples, and all of life, and to care for them. If you are newish here this morning and would like to learn more about our tradition, please let me know. There's contact information posted at the end of the service. Many thanks to Rebecca, Annie, John, and James for contributing to our service in word, music, production, and spirit. And thanks to all of you for being here and making us a blessed community. May our time together help us grow.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Wilson, Worship Associate for today. To begin our service, we light our chalice as a symbol of our search for truth and meaning, our shared communion, and our light of caring. Join, if you will, in the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our invocation is also our meditation this morning, a deep breath to focus, if you will, on words from poet Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Now, our opening hymn.
Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Down by the riverside, gonna lay down my sword and shield. Down by the riverside, gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside. Gonna lay down my burden down by the riverside. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. ain't gonna study war no more.
I have a question this morning for children and their families. How do you learn what's really important in life? As you probably know, this is Memorial Day weekend. Day off of school tomorrow. That's nice, but don't forget, school's a place to learn what's important in life. And remembering people that we loved and who are no longer with us can be an important way to learn what's important in life. Some people say there's no shortcut to learning that, but I know of one shortcut. Every day when I came home from school, from kindergarten through high school, I took a shortcut through our old town cemetery. It was a friendly place. People were dying to get in there. The oldest gravestone I ever found was from 1636, over almost 400 years ago. That was the year the town was started. I would often wander off the path through the cemetery and move between the gravestones, reading the epitaphs. Many said what was valued about that person's life. It was a shortcut, a quick way to get the final word after a whole life. Some of my favorites were, he practiced those virtues without which kings are but slaves. Another was, she was one of God's most gracious. Something to learn from there. Another was, gone but not forgiven. That's a kind of a heads-up warning, I think. I like two that I saw in a book. She never realized how great she was. Did that mean she was humble or clueless? I don't know. Worth thinking about. And I really liked another. He never understood what he was here for. That makes you think. And I also really liked one that was a kind of a guide for boys and men, and which I know has a mirror image for women and for girls. Devoted son, caring brother, loving husband, proud father, adoring papa. If you search, you can find pretty helpful ideas that are good to talk about, written on gravestones. So happy searching. Let us know if you find a favorite shortcut to what's important. Now we'll take a moment for joys and concerns that we might want to share this morning. If you can share joys or concerns in the comment column on the right of your YouTube screen, if you like, or you can share during the coffee hour after this service, so you can do both. You can also have a joy or concern shared aloud at this time during the service, if you will let me or Worship Committee Chair Bill Motter know of your joy or concern. This morning I'm particularly grateful for the great job our church board and committee leaders have been doing moving us forward through this very difficult pandemic. They have really been wonderful. And speaking for the church, I think we share the grief and the value of the continued anger over the death of George Floyd a year ago. May we learn how to stop our society's brutality against our own people. For the sake of all who are under the continuing strain of these times, may we continue to reach out and take care of one another. May we have joy in what we have and in the strengths that let us cope with our concerns. May we keep in touch, whether in need or in support. Now our first reading.
Our first reading is adapted from the first book of the prophet Samuel, chapter 17. The youthful shepherd David was sent by his father with food for his elder brothers, who were in the army of Israel, then in battle against the Philistines. At the battleground, Goliath, the giant champion of the Philistines, came forth as he had for 40 days, challenging the soldiers of Israel to send forth their champion to determine which people would be subject to the other. The soldiers of Israel were terrified, but David said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Who will kill him and take away our shame?" David's eldest brother heard him, and his anger kindled, and he said, "Why did you come here? I know your wayward heart. You just want to see the bloodshed." And David said, "Is there not a cause?"
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
Our second reading is from Nez Perce Chief Joseph, calling on his chiefs to surrender after devastating resistance against the U.S. troops who assisted the U.S. takeover of Nez Perce land in the Oregon Territory. Tell General Howard, I am tired of fighting. Our chiefs are killed. Looking Glass is dead. Tahulhul is dead. The old men are all dead. It is the young men who say yes or no, but he who led on the young men is dead. It is cold, and we have no blankets. The little children are freezing to death. My people, some of them, have run away to the hills and have no blankets, no food. No one knows where they are, perhaps freezing to death. I want to have time to look for my children and see how many of them I can find. Maybe I shall find them among the dead. Hear me, chiefs. I am tired, my heart is sick and sad. From where the sun now stands, I will fight no more forever.
What is Memorial Day for? What would you say? The formal reason for the holiday is to remember and honor Americans who died in our military service. The currently encouraged expression of respect these days seems to be, "Thank you for your service." But is that enough? How do we best honor our military dead and those now serving who are willing to die? Of course, the answer might depend on who you ask: the warrior, the spouse, the children, the traumatized, the protester, the enterpriser, the profiteer, the enemy, the victor, the loser, the dead. But regardless, is it not also a time to deepen understanding of things, deepen caring, deepen community? Is it not a time to reflect on the causes for which the dead were willing to die? Isn't it a time to reflect on the price that was paid? Isn't it a time to reflect on the choices that were made? I think it's important to ask, because to sacrifice, never mind to die, for something unworthy seems unacceptable. So when you were a child, what did you think Memorial Day was for? In my baptismal photos, I was surrounded by family in military uniforms. World War II fighting was widespread. When I was a little boy, each day my dad went to work at the Army base in uniform. My mom's uniform was of the American Women's Voluntary Service, as I recall. Almost all my uncles and aunts had uniforms as soldiers and military nurses, and some were serving to their detriment in combat. The first Memorial Day ceremony I remember, I was 4. The Korean War was a couple of years away, not that I knew. The ceremony was outside at the high school with food, speeches, and an army band. I marched with my parents hand in hand across the field to the gathering area, my dad in his former uniform. My understanding was that some Americans, including some daddies, had died in far-off places fighting to protect us all. They were heroes. It was sad, but gathering was good. 2 years later, we had moved 20 miles away to Concord, Massachusetts. I was in kindergarten. The Korean War was about to begin. Because of Concord's Revolutionary War battle, to my list of memorial heroes, I added the Minutemen, who fired the shot heard round the world, willing to die to break from tyranny and protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How about when you moved from childhood into youth? In those days, for me, Concord's Memorial Day ceremony was held at the foot of my street in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. From the cemetery site, it was 100 paces up Arthur's Ridge to the tombstones of anti-slavery, anti-imperialism Henry David Thoreau, and Civil War nurse and author of Little Women, Louisa May Alcott, among other greats. To our right was a spacious Civil War memorial, from which the towering and transcending goddess Victory in Mourning kept the watch with us. In those days, it began to occur to me that causes are what people live for more than die for. They live in the hope that their causes are good and universal, defeating tyranny, ending oppression, winning justice, adding understanding, giving care and increasing it, working even if defeated for the moment. Life must have purpose, and purpose must have life. That's what Memorial Day was starting to say and mean to me as I was coming of age. What about as an adult? As a younger adult, my romantic artist cause was to experience life, thoughtless of price or other choices. Nonetheless, through adulthood, I came to see that the world is everywhere marked with the monuments of loss and remembrance, often of war. In Mexico, Olmec, Mayan, Aztec, Spanish memorials. In Canada, First Peoples, French, English memorials. In the Pacific Islands, Islander, Spanish, German, Japanese, American memorials. In Vietnam, Montagnard, Chinese, Vietnamese, French, American memorials. And in America, red, white, black, gold, pink, rainbow, green memorials. Today I'm trying to remember it all. The causes held, choices made, prices paid, defeats and victories experienced, lessons learned, causes calling now. This past Friday, some Alachua County Veterans for Peace finished putting up 7,028 papier-mâché tombstones along a mile's course, markers for those Americans who have died so far in Iraq and Afghanistan since 2001. Each tombstone citing name, rank, branch of service, date of death, age, and hometown. I was able to be a member of Vets for Peace when I lived in Gainesville, eligible from having served on a military team in Vietnam as a civilian refugee officer. Each Memorial Day since 2007, as Alachua County Vets for Peace, we put up the markers and we walk the Memorial Mile loop and then take turns standing watch to guide those who come to pay respect. An old friend, Bill Hutchinson, is one of the Vets for Peace in Gainesville, a local musician and philosopher kind of guy. I remember one day a group of us picketing on a Gainesville street corner in protest and sorrow as the invasion of Iraq seemed certain. And Bill interjected a phrase into our sadness that kept us going and stays with me. At least we can always work on building circles of decency. So to conclude on this Memorial Day Sunday, what is our cause? You might join me in saying our cause, our common cause, is building that circle of decency which allows peace and prosperity for all. What are our choices? I'm in line with the scientific happiness studies that basic needs, supportive communities, and a circle of good friends constitute the formula for maximizing individual and community and world happiness. Circles of decency. I think it might be as simple as live simply so others may simply live. What is the price? The price for choosing this road is zero, because the work of feeding, housing, healing, and educating one another is much more reward than cost. And I would say that makes the difference worth taking. What do you say? What do you say? Thank you.
To keep our congregation thriving, may we remember our connection to one another, and let us not forget our offerings to support the means to those connections. As you listen to our brief offertory, to make a contribution, please click on the I in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can also donate either via the Give Plus app or our website under the Giving tab, or by sending a check to the church office. Many thanks. Thank you, everybody, for being here together this morning. Please stay safe and well through the week. We hope you can join us right after the service for our coffee hour at the Zoom address coming up shortly on your screen. Now, as our service ends, with a breath, we pass the light of our chalice lamp to each other as we say together, "We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world."
Some words of benediction adapted from Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. About 250 years ago, our forebears brought forth on this continent a new nation, dedicated to the proposition that all people are created equal. It is for us, the living, now, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they fought for. It is for us to be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. May we be so devoted, so that life, liberty, and happiness will spread across our land and our world. A peaceful week to you.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mist, what are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mist, what are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we?